Hello, welcome to this edition of IMO Bastani with me, at Aaron Bastani. You can share, comment, disagree with this video under the hashtag IMO Bastani. Thanks for watching. This week I want to talk about Russell Brand's latest truths activism endeavour, hashtag Love the Police. I'm speaking on Wednesday. I think Brand launched this on his YouTube channel yesterday, on Tuesday. It's not often I watch that YouTube channel. The last time was when he talked to Ed Miliband. I was told that I had to watch this because it's one of the stupidest things that anybody's ever come up with, and lo and behold, they were absolutely right. Brand says that he had this idea having spoken to a number of police officers, primarily in the Metropolitan Police Service, who made the kinds of complaints he more generally hears amongst anti-austerity activists. Low pay, a bum deal on pensions and outsourcing, and broadly speaking that's true. The police in the last 5 years, since the arrival of the coalition government since 2010, have had declining pay and living standards. The pension age has gone up and so on and so forth. That didn't happen in the 1980s, for instance, when Thatcher smashed the union movement, but she understood that she had to reward those who did her bidding, i.e. the police. That's not happened this time round. That said, what I found particularly sickening, I have structural problems with the police, but this really did take the biscuit, was how that Brand was very keen to have black people, young black people as he puts it, and Muslims at the forefront of this pro-cop activism. Now, when you think that black people, there's a lot of data on this, black people are 28 times more likely to be stopped and searched than white people. They're 4.5 times more likely to be found guilty if they go to court on drug offences. They're 5 times more likely to go into immediate custody. It's kind of fucked up that Brand thinks that these people in particular should be at the forefront of activism, which would champion, which would advance the interests of people that harass and intimidate and assault them on a daily basis, and even sometimes kill them. In terms of killing people of colour, I want to briefly return to the story of Christopher Older. I mentioned his story last year on an IMO Bastani in relation to how racist are the police. You can find that on Navarra TV. Christopher Older died in 1998 in police custody. He was taken out of a hospital while unconscious in handcuffs. He died shortly afterwards in a police cell. This is 1998. There were a number of inquiries. Eventually he was found to have been unlawfully killed. In one of those inquests, police officers were asked to give evidence on 150 occasions. They refused on every single one, citing coroner's conventions in regard to not having to submit evidence which may be incriminating. That's disgusting, and like I say, I talked about that on the IMO Bastani last year. What I discovered a few weeks ago really took the biscuit. Janet Older, had the privilege of speaking with her at an event, told of how in 2013 she discovered that she had been surveilled by no less than 17 undercover police officers while trying to do nothing other than get justice for her dead brother. My question for Russell Brand is this: does he think that people like Janet Older should be participating on his situationist, subversive protests? Maybe they should be pepper spraying themselves, or finning up themselves, or killing themselves. I'm not quite sure, it's not quite clear. That's perhaps why he's crowdsourced ideas on the hashtag on the internet, because he doesn't have any himself, because it's a fucking stupid idea. Alongside the story of Janet Older, I also want to give the story of Mauro de Metro. Mauro was arrested in 2011 during the London riots. He was told by a PC, Alex McFarlane, "You'll always be a nigger." Fortunately, the Metro had a recording of McFarlane saying this. Now, this is how racist not just the police, but the Crown Prosecution Service are. The judges and often the jury as well. The whole criminal justice system is incredibly racist. But here's the CPS. The CPS told the Metro he had insufficient evidence to pursue the case. Now, this is quite literally a recording of a police officer calling him a nigger. But that wasn't enough evidence. So you decide for yourself whether we have a huge problem in regard to racism, the policing, the CPS, and the whole criminal justice system. I think that's pretty indisputable. It has been since the McPherson report. Even the state admits this. Alongside the racist angle, the racism angle, the racialised angle of how policing plays out on a daily basis in the UK, there's also the structural reasons for why the police exist in the first place. Brand seems to think that they're now the henchmen of the establishment, of a certain kind of interest, the interest of the ruling class, the elite. That's true, but he thinks that that wasn't always the case, and that they used to serve the public. That's wholly untrue. That's really at odds with any historical account of why the police come into existence in the first place. The police come about in the UK and the US between 1820 and 1850, right? So that's broadly about the same time as the emergence of industrial capitalism. That's not a coincidence. Scholar on this, a guy called David Whitehouse, says that the police emerged in the UK in response to the very first labour movements, trade unions, taking strike action, industrial action, and in the US in response to urban riots in the north and increasingly frequent slave insurrections in the American South. This is, of course, before the American Civil War, before the abolition of slavery. So the whole role, the raison d'etre, the reason why the police exist was to suppress resistance, to impose the will, wishes, desires and interests of the ruling class, something I think Brand seems completely ignorant about. There's actually a really strong case to be made for abolishing the riot police. In London, Jenny Jones, then a Green member of the London Assembly, submitted a report saying precisely that the TSG, the Territorial Support Group, the kind of riot police element of the Met, should be abolished. Last year, 2014, Owen Jones, not an anarchist revolutionary like Brand, a member of the Labour Party and a Guardian writer, said that the Met should go the same way as the Northern Irish RUC, that it should be dissolved, it should be abolished, and that a new force should start from the ground up. I agree with what Owen's saying. I'd probably go a step further. I'd say that along with the Met, South and West Yorkshire should be dissolved because of Orgreave, because of Hillsborough, because of Savile, and Greater Manchester Police, the GMP, should also be dissolved. All of that, however, would be a first step to a constitutional convention where we would discuss in a democratic way from the grassroots up, not just questions of should we be a republic, should we get rid of the monarchy, but big material questions like do we take housing, energy, transport, all number of things. We bring these into public common ownership, and if we want a police force, what would it look like? Because I agree with those sentiments. You want a police force that protects the public. What would it look like? I think it would look incredibly different to the one which Brand is championing, the one which Brand is saying deserves a pay rise, better pay and conditions, better pensions. So we all know that the politics of austerity Britain can be pretty boring when compared to what's happening in southern Europe. Last couple of weeks, as many of you will know, 4 of the 5 largest cities in Spain won mayors who are from the radical left, attached to democratic social movement campaigns, coalitions, rather than political parties. Almost the same day that Brand was saying that particularly people of colour and Muslims, bizarrely, should be championing the interests of a police force which harasses, intimidates and often kills them, the mayor of Badalona, Catalonia's 3rd largest city, actually scrapped the riot police. That's not a unique measure. That's being talked about in many large cities across Spain. Syriza, when they won the Greek general election in January, effectively said the same thing, that they would abolish Delta Squad. There have been moves towards that. So if you want to see what democratic mass movements can achieve in regard to policing, you don't need to look any further than Badalona, Barcelona and Greece, and those movements are saying dramatically different things to Brand. So there's a lot that I disagree with in regard to Brand, personally and politically. A hell of a lot. And yesterday's video was the icing on the cake. It's clear that he has certainly reached parts that much of the left can't reach. I mean, he's got, I think, more than 8 million followers on Twitter, maybe 10 million. He's got 1 million subscribers to his YouTube channel. He's got a huge profile. And undoubtedly, he has initiated conversations about the nature of capitalism, power, the state, in quarters that weren't previously talking about it. That said, I think he is an entertainer. And as an entertainer, he's more interested in attention than action. Too frequently in the last several months, he's kept that same line of saying repeatedly, we are collectively bound together by little more than vague dissatisfaction, apathy, disconnection, and a kind of sense that we don't really know where to go next, that we don't know what to do about things. I really disagree with it. I think many people are looking not just at Spain, not just at Barcelona, not just Madrid, not just Cadiz. They're looking in places like Greece. They're looking at the global south. They're looking at Latin America over the last couple of decades. They're looking at history. They're looking at the trade union movements of the 19th and 20th centuries, the Black Panther Party. Too many to mention the global south in particular. And they're saying, well, look, actually, here's a blueprint for action, which is in the here and now. It's actionable, it's pragmatic and utopian. And that's where we go from here. And Brand's line is not about that. Brand's line is not about action. Brand's line is about attention. He's an entertainer. And entertainment, no matter how funny the front man, only goes so far. I want to add one final point. At the end of Brand's video, he played the song Fuck the Police by NWA and replaced the word fuck with love. I don't like to talk about appropriation too often, but this really is something that merits discussion. The United States is a country which has 2.5 million people in the penitentiary system, 2.5 million people locked up. The vast majority of who are black people, black men. The song was performed by Ice Cube in the NWA. So the context of that song, Fuck the Police, is about a resentment, a hatred to the United States, which locks up overwhelmingly black men of colour. Now, for a white guy in Dalston, in the 21st century, who's a former MTV presenter, to be replacing that word with love is really fantastically screwed up. It's racist, it's screwed up. I mean, it's just erasing a whole history of black working class resistance in the United States. Take the Black Panther Party, Fred Hampton People talk about Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. Hampton was up there in terms of one of the great orators. He would have been one of the great political leaders of the 21st century, Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton died when he was 21 years old, I think in 1969. He was shot dead by, we don't know who, National Guard, cops, people with shotguns. And he died next to his pregnant girlfriend. So when Ice Cube is saying, fuck the police, he's talking about people like Fred Hampton. He's talking about the Panthers that were in solitary confinement. Innocent people, men and women, 10, 20, 30 years, deprived of their lives for a political cause, social justice. He's talking about, yeah, many of those people in the US federal prison system, 2.5 million of them, many of which are black men. That's what he's talking about. He's saying fuck the police, justifiably. And for Brand to come along and erase that and recontextualize it and resituate it for his own ends, his own weird, screwed up, messianic ends, really makes me angry. So what do you think about Brand's views on hashtag love the police, on police in relationship to class, race and capitalism? You know what I think. Why don't you put those views on hashtag IMO Bastani? Furthermore, if you want to contribute to the broad discussion, which includes people that may agree with Brand, why not go to the hashtag love the police? I certainly did that. I repeated Janet Alder's story there yesterday. It's clear for people who want a better world, something better than this, a better politics, who believe in radical democracy, who believe we really deserve a better society than the one we presently have, that they understand that the police don't treat everybody like they might treat them. I'm Aaron Bastani. Thanks for watching. I will see you again very soon. Hopefully it will remain as sunny as this and we'll have another IMO al fresco. Thanks.